Religion does not have any of its own resources. They're all hijacked from other areas of human life. And I'm not attacking here the run-of-the-mill members of the religious flock for this. They have often no choice in the matter of the dogmas that they believe. I want to specifically attack the religious leaders, the clerics, the strategists, those who use religious belief as a tool of control. Popes, archbishops, priests and imams, all probably cynical atheists maintaining the lies because they benefit directly from the promotion of religion. I believe they all suspect or know that religion is bankrupt. These clerics need to put more and more energy into obscuring the fact that the last big things that they claim really happened were 1400 or 2000 years ago. In light of emerging and proven contrary explanations for almost everything in existence, clerics are putting increasing effort into focusing on supposedly unique religious roles in areas of human experience that they think that can still separate from non-dogmatic, non-religious life, things like spirituality, morality, emotion, forgiveness. Apart from the demographic sense in relation to Islam in particular, religions are generally getting louder, not larger. Clerics are trying to distract attention away from their disastrous handling of the trust of billions of ovine investors over the centuries in areas they used to glibly talk about as though they were experts, things like biology, chemistry, cosmology, to name just a few. As time passes, the flocks are not getting interest on their investments in the Jesus or Muhammad bank. Indeed, the very fact that religions like Islam and Christianity emphasize so strongly that you get your return on investment after you die shows just how bankrupt they are. This was not the case when Christianity and Islam started. Their followers at the time would not have thought that 1400 or 2000 years would have passed with little else happening. No end of the world, no second coming, nothing that would justify the investment of everything that the flock had put in during their earthly life, which itself was increasingly feeling like a dull waiting room for the next. The only thing that has happened with this investment is that there are wealthy churches and mosques and billions hidden away in various accounts that only the clerics and political leaders have control over and access to. They never realized that this weight of building was going to take place on such poor foundations, because they never thought the world was going to continue for so long. At the time of Jesus and Muhammad, they would have simply built temporary tents until the end of the world. Then, a little disappointed by the delay, they would have replaced them with wooden huts, then some single-story buildings, but what's the point of building higher, when God was about to appear himself in person either that or perhaps the next day? But as the centuries passed, multi-story prayer parks were built, getting bigger and taller and more imposing to impress the sheep, since there wasn't apparently such a great urgency on the part of God to do the impressing himself in person. And now the whole lot is sinking into the ground, and there is nothing left but the buildings. Gone as high as they can possibly go towards heaven, then science comes in above the whole lot and showed that heaven was not up there in outer space, covering this flat earth all along. The churches were designed to literally reach closer to heaven, and once it was shown that there was no physical heaven up there, the clerics turned it into a purely metaphorical statement. The trusting flocks didn't see the trickster's sleight of hand in that one, did they? So just as the buildings have outstretched themselves in pursuit of a non-existent heaven, the clerics have outstretched themselves in pursuit of a non-existent spirituality or morality or special difference between religious and non-religious people. There are no differences. They don't exist. This is going to be shown as the greatest South Sea bubble in human history. They are left on metaphorical tippy-toes, with their arms and hands outstretched, trying to reach for that elusive uniqueness that will justify the billions of tons of religious buildings and the tens of millions of cleric hours per day being paid for by unwitting believers. Since we know that they will not find anything unique, they'll either topple over and land flat on their noses, or perhaps use their guile and business acumen, which their institutions have developed and honed over tens of centuries, to diversify and find other ways of leeching off their hosts. They'll have to diversify if they're going to survive. While they may not go financially bankrupt for some considerable time, indeed they do have a rather large embarrassment of financial riches at the moment, they do know that they are already morally bankrupt. They've kept their flocks in the dark about this for centuries, and it was much easier then. There were no books or mobile phones, DVDs, CDs, TV, films, internet, computer hard drives, flash disks on which the previously failed efforts of the religious institutions could be recorded and disseminated to Joe public. Each generation was a blank sheet without any means of finding out for themselves what had gone on previously, except via the religious clerics themselves or their religious parents. But this has all changed, at least outside the most restrictive countries and religions. Religions are also bankrupt in how they can make a valid practical contribution in the 21st century, when we look at what religion has to offer compared to the wave of non-dogma-based thinking that has swept through Western society since the Reformation, Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution. Non-dogmatic thinking that simply does not need anything at all, and I'm going to repeat that, nothing at all from religion, for it not only to maintain human life, but to improve it beyond the greatest possible leaps of imagination that could ever have been made by a whole tribe of Jesuses or Mohammeds. In this series, Religion the Great Hijacker, I want to show that religion is irrelevant to humanity, that it could disappear without taking with it one single valuable human, physical, mental or spiritual experience. By dealing with the bankrupt nature of religion, I want to divest you of any lingering notion that there is something that is genuinely unique and exclusive to religion. I believe religion has been a parasite for too long and will not be allowed to continue to feed off its human host without causing significant damage to the next stages of growth that the human race is embarking on. Humanity in the 21st century needs calm and balanced thinking to solve the very real problems before it, and it's clear that religion will only cause more alienation and division between people. So after all my preliminary waffle, my argument from Bankruptcy goes something like this. Average members of the flock are not responsible for resisting reason and progress. Responsibility rests with the clerics. In the 16th century, when Copernicus said that the earth went around the sun, he stood in direct contradiction against religious teaching that stated that the sun went around the earth. Copernicus blew apart any future possibility of belief that the sun went around the earth. The average John and Mary Christian of the day would not have had any problem with any of this stuff, had it not been for the religious clerics defending their dogmatic position and taking the flock along with them. But what about now in the 21st century? Do Muslim imams and Roman Catholic priests stand up and claim the sun still goes around the earth? Of course not. And why not? Because their unfounded Christian dogmatic geocentric view had been conclusively shown to be bankrupt. It was thrown out, replaced with the truth. Truth seen and accepted by every sane person from that day to this, whether religious or non-religious. See where I'm going with this argument? The theory of evolution is simply the next heliocentricity. There will come a day, some hundreds of years hence, when a whole century will have passed without one sane person thinking that the theory of evolution is anything but truth, fact, real, unquestionable. This is why religion is bankrupt. Its very foundations are being stripped of their scientific validity at an astounding rate. The clerics will not be able to keep their flocks in the dark during the information age. And when their flocks no longer believe the lies that they've been saying, these cynical businessmen, well experienced in sleights of hand, will simply act like all sleazy politicians and claim that they were the ones who were in support of the new discoveries in the first place. Once these clerics know you can't beat 'em, they'll lead 'em. And while I want to make it plain that I'm not saying the higher values of spirituality, morality, revelation, love, beauty, etc. are bankrupt in any way, quite the contrary in fact, what is bankrupt is religion's moral claim as the sole arbiter of these human gems. In the next videos in this series, I'm going to deal with these human delights, and I'm going to suggest that none of them is owned by religion. Cynical and desperate religious leaders are trying harder and harder to claim that these human experiences are the unique province of religion because they realize that they have nothing else left in reserve. They are bankrupt. And my closing questions to you are these. Would you have been one of those who lost their money investing in the cleric's claim that the sun went around the earth? And will you be one of those in the 21st century investing in the cleric's claim that the earth was created 6,000 years ago